All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another Workshop Wednesday. My name is Matt Sykes, a systems engineer here at Verify, and I'll be your host for today's workshop. Today we're joined by Mr. Victor Verba, another SE over here, and he's going to cover the new features and enhancements in Verify 13.0. Hey Vic, how's it going today, buddy?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's a beautiful day, sunny, perfect outside right now.
That it is, that it is. All right, fantastic. Okay, everyone, we're going to start off with a quick overview of our company and what we do. Next, Victor will lead us into a live demo to show us all the new bells and whistles coming in Verify 13.0. We'll pause for Q&A and get some of your questions answered. During the demo, if you have any questions, make sure to ask them in the Q&A panel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, not the WebEx chat, but the Q&A panel. After Q&A, we will reward one lucky attendee a $50 Amazon gift card, so hang around and see if you have won. A quick overview of Verify. So Verify is the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration. We provide industry-leading CDR, UCCX, and Cube Call analytics, customizable dashboards and widgets, remote phone control, change management, and dial plan management. But today we're going to focus on the Verify 13.0 release and provide an overview of all the latest and greatest functionality. If you have any other questions on any of our other features, please feel free to chat them over to me and we'll take those offline and get those answered for you very promptly. Okay, one more thing before we kick things off. For those of you who are looking for a more hands-off Verify experience, we do offer a managed consulting service. This provides a Verify dedicated systems engineer to do all the heavy lifting, giving you and your users a complete hands-off experience. Kind of think of us as an extension of your organization a little bit. It provides upgrades, one-on-one training, report and dashboard training and building, or anything you need, honestly. Your dedicated Verify SE has you covered. The only thing you have to do is just reach out to us. If you want any additional information on our ECS service offerings, please feel free to reach out to your account manager and we'll be happy to assist you and see if ECS is right for you. All right, with all that said, I will kick it over to Victor to lead us into the wild to show us Verify 13.0.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this workshop. Purpose of today's workshop is just going to talk a little bit about what's available in Verify EFT 13.0. For those who haven't had an opportunity to take a look at our newsletter or pop over to planetverify.com, we have released EFT 13.0, kind of Rev 2, we'll call it. Couple of features in there, as well as a couple of fixes. So a big shout out and thank you to everybody who participated in our beta program for the first round of EFT. Found a couple of things in there that we were able to quickly resolve. So I'll talk a little bit about those in a second. Verify 13.0 is going to include a Cube event reporting, as well as new to EFT 2 is our Cube CDR monitoring. So anybody that's running our Cube applications out there, you may want to take part in the EFT program here and get that Cube monitoring. We have noticed some issues with some iOS devices out there that may intermittently stop sending data over to Verify. This is a great way to kind of get ahead of that. Also in EFT is UCCX audible alerts. It's the ability to send audible alerts to your wallboards or dashboards to draw attention to problematic situations. Database archiving. Database archiving is basically a way of helping keeping your what we'll call primary database small, keeping your end user experience peppy, and your dashboards running fast, your general daily, weekly, monthly reports running quick, while you can continue to archive years and years worth of data off onto different SQL servers if you want, or keep it all onto a single server. Multi-database support. Which is the ability to manually archive databases. You know, if I've got 2 or 3 years worth of data in a database, maybe we're not querying that with any regularity, but we need to keep it for consistency and just for compliance. So Verify 13.0 introduces the ability to support multiple databases and attach those databases into Verify, giving your end users a seamless reporting process into some of that historic data, regardless of where that data resides on the different SQL servers. Report queuing. Basically, report queuing is going to allow you to go ahead and basically allow Verify to queue reports. So when we have a lot of hands in the cookie jar, a lot of people have a tendency to say, you know, let's schedule this report, run it at midnight. And next thing you know, you've got 30 or 40 reports all trying to run at midnight. What report queuing is going to do is going to basically allow those reports to queue instead of all trying to kick them off all at once. That's not going to impact your report timeframes. Those reports will queue up and then run in a order, so that way you're not bogging down the system at midnight, when you're trying to do a bunch of different things. Next thing is maximum number of widgets. Again, there's another efficiency change here. We noticed that a lot of customers have a tendency to build out dashboards and they just keep adding widgets. Sometimes they have a test dashboard out there and they're building things out to a test dashboard and then subsequently copying them over to a live dashboard. So it's kind of the build it out first and then make it go live onto their, maybe their call center dashboard or something like that. But we did notice that those test dashboards that people were creating were getting rather large. So what we've done is we've added the ability to limit the number of widgets on those dashboards. So it's going to default out to about 15 dashboards. But then go ahead and impose a limit, so you can't have 50 dashboards running on there. You can get up to 25 on a dashboard, 25 widgets on a dashboard, but don't worry, we're not going to cut you off and say, hey, anything that you've built beyond that default threshold is just going to be gone. It's just going to prevent you from adding more, so we'll take a little bit of a deeper dive into that. Next thing we're going to talk about is report alerts. New feature to 13.0. We noticed that every now and then customers may have a problem where they're maybe sending a report that's larger than their email server allows, or if they lose connectivity to an SMTP server or something like that, that report would fail. But we weren't giving a lot of information back to the end users or the system administrators to let them know that report had failed. So we did introduce some alerting on reports failing, so that way system administrators can receive an email if there's a report failure with some information on what that failure may be. New to EFT2 here is also the ability to send permalinks. If you're familiar with Verify and its permalinking abilities, that's the ability to send a static link out to end users used for dashboards or just for other people to view it, but not have to worry about giving them a login to Verify system. So with EFT2, that is now going to go ahead and function with your single sign-on abilities. And last but not least here is the support for privileged LDAP authentication values. Prior to version 13.0, Verify did not require a login to talk to certain fields within your Active Directory using LDAP. Things like SAM account name are not considered privileged fields within Active Directory. But we've had quite a few customers that wanted to do and utilize privileged fields to authenticate to Active Directory. Simple one being user principal name, or sometimes mail, the mail attribute, so they would log in to Verify with their mail, their email. Those were considered privileged fields, so we do now support the ability to talk to LDAP and authenticate to some of those privileged fields. So that's kind of the high-level overview. Let's go ahead and jump into just a couple of the tools here and kind of show you what we've got. So let me go ahead and exit out of here, and let's pop right over to Verify. So I'm going to start off with the dashboard here. One of the first things that we had talked about was the ability to add some audible alerts into Contact Center. So this is a UCCX widget that I'm looking at right here. And once I edit that guy, you're going to notice our thresholds. If you guys aren't taking advantage of the thresholds at the moment, I definitely urge you to do that. It's a great way to draw attention to problematic queues. Or there's too many calls in the queue. Number one thing that I always like to build out is when I do have my queues is I always want to have something in there that's going to identify when nobody's logged in. That's a problem. If you've got a queue that's relatively busy and all of a sudden everybody drops, maybe phone issues or something like that, you're going to want to draw attention to that right away. Prior to EFT13, we were able to do that via colors. So you can see right here, I have my number of logged in agents, and I'm saying I want this guy to turn red when there were 0 agents involved or 0 agents logged in. So what we have the ability to do now is also play an audible tone. So if I drop down to 0, it's going to go ahead and play an audible tone. I get to pick from several options of the audible tone down to severity. So critical alerts, informational alerts, or warning alerts. Just to kind of give you an example here, we'll see if we can hear that over my headset. I'll crank that guy up. Besides being able to just pick your tone, you also get to be able to select the repeat intervals, how often you want this guy to repeat, and then a delay between the repeats. And we'll see if we can hear this guy here. I don't know if that came through, but that's definitely a new option in EFT. It's a great way to be able to draw attention to something that is problematic, or even just kind of give you a heads up if there's something going on that maybe you want to look into from an agent perspective or a queue perspective. While we're going ahead and working in our dashboard here, one of the other things that we have available in EFT is also the ability to sequence or unsequence events in Cube call data. If you're familiar with our Cube Analytics, it's a great way to be able to get ahead of problems that maybe aren't even making it to Call Manager. It's also a great way to be able to determine how your calls are routing through your Cube environment. Not every call goes to Call Manager. We realize that. Some go straight out to gateways, some go to MS Teams part of the networks. Maybe you have a CCE out there. The calls don't route through Call Manager. They route directly to CCE. So with our Cube Analytics, we give you the ability to go ahead and pick those details apart and really see what the front end of your phone system is doing over there. But with that, we also found that each cube has what we call sequences of events. In other words, a cube call is much different than a call manager call, where you could have a call where I call Matt and that's the end of the story. But with cube, there's always going to be a call that comes into the cube and a event that goes out of the cube. So we're calling that more event-based reporting. So initially prior to 13.0, we can report the entire sequence of events. In other words, what you're seeing here is a sequence of a single event taking place in my cube. With 13.0, we did find the need to be able to go ahead and not report necessarily the whole event, but just report the single event that we're looking for. So to give you an example, in this particular widget here, I'm looking strictly for internal error messages. You'll notice this guy right here under my internal error code. These are calls that are failing in my call manager. So this is a great widget to have because it's going to draw attention to a potential problem taking place within your cube. So you'll notice here that I am reporting sequences. This is the default. It's always going to report the sequence of events. In other words, the call coming into my cube and then the call leaving my cube. In this particular record right here, you're going to see that the call going back out of my cube is where I received my internal error. That's important. So what I want to do here is maybe not necessarily show the entire sequence. I may just want to show the events, the peer IDs, the IP addresses, where the failure is actually happening. So that's where event-based reporting comes in. So if I edit this guy down, you're going to notice that we've got a new option up here for widgets based on sequences, which is the default, which is going to show both the inbound and outbound portion of that cube call. But I also can break that down. In this particular case, where I'm looking at just errors, I want to be able to really just drill in, not necessarily the whole sequence. I just want to drill in on the event that's taking place so I can quickly troubleshoot that. So you'll notice here that if I go ahead and change over to events and give this guy a quick save, what you're going to see here is instead of showing the entire sequence of events, now I've isolated down to just the error code event. So you can see that my peer IDs that are having the issue, the IP addresses, and I'm not having to go ahead and figure out the entire sequence or drop down just to see the event that I'm looking for. So this is a great way to get even more finite with some of that cube data. Another great way to be able to use this, you'll notice that this little guy over here is just looking at the peer IDs where I'm receiving my internal errors. So what you can see here is 300, 200. These are the peer IDs that the internal errors are taking place. But one thing you're going to notice, I'm going to switch this guy back over here, is when we're using sequence-based reporting and we're using grouping or the summary values, what we're going to do is we're going to show the peer IDs for the sequence. So what you're going to see here is I have my peer ID 300 where I received an internal error message. This is telling me that there's 73 calls involved. But what it's doing is it is counting this one. Why? Because it's looking at the entire sequence of events. Now, even though that the error code happened with peer ID 800, when we look at sequencing, we look at the entire sequence of events taking place. So we are counting this guy, even though it does this particular event here is part of the sequence. This is not necessarily where my error took place. So what you can easily do, again, much like I did with that detail widget, I can easily trim this guy down and say, hey, you know what? I want to look at just the events where the error messages are happening so I know exactly which peer IDs I have the problem with the most, or which IP addresses or codecs I'm having the issue. So you'll notice right here very quickly, we went down from 70 something odd calls to 300 down to 21. Why? Because this is now isolating just the peer ID of the event that took place in the cube. So great way to be able to get, again, even a little bit more finite with that data. One of the other things that I had mentioned was the ability to restrict how many widgets are on a single dashboard. So a couple different things that's going to impact. One, you are grandfathered in. So if you have a dashboard like this guy right here, who has a lot of dashboards. Matt, any idea whose dashboard this is?
I have no idea whose board that is.
Oh, no idea, huh? Okay. So, one of the things you'll notice here is this guy has a lot of widgets on it, which again is okay depending on how you're using your dashboard. But we don't want this many widgets on everybody's dashboard. This is going to bog down your system and maybe not provide the best user experience. So we did go ahead and put some values that you can adjust to the maximum number of widgets. Now, cool thing about that is regardless if I change this, not going to get rid of any widgets here. These widgets are already here to stay. But when Matt or whoever's dashboard this is goes to add any more widgets, they're going to notice the button is grayed out, and I'll show you guys that in a second. Other cool thing about this is there's no circumventing the system here. So let's say I like Matt's dashboard. I like all these widgets. If I try to copy this and circumvent the system, it's going to come back and say, hey, wait a minute, we've got more than 25 widgets on this dashboard. We cannot copy this particular dashboard. So just something to keep in mind. Great way to be able to, again, limit some of the usage that folks, if you've got 50 widgets on your dashboard, you may want to just create another dashboard because do you really need those 50 widgets refreshing constantly for you? So that's a lot of the dashboard type information that we have here. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and take a look at are some of the other features here. I talked a little bit about cubes and cube data management. One of the things that we have noticed is some of those iOS devices, like I said, they will decide to just stop sending data. It's not a regular occurrence, but when it does occur, you kind of want to know about it. It's very much like looking at CDR, and if you're familiar with Cisco Call Manager, you'll know occasionally that CDR repository service may need to get restarted. For that, we have CDR alerting in your Cisco environment or your Call Manager environment to let you know if we stop receiving data within a certain threshold. So we've added that in EFT2. So if you guys want to take advantage of this, I definitely urge you to get EFT2. And simple flip of the switch, if I edit my cube cluster, all I have to do, if I go into CDR processing and then edit my cube cluster, you'll just scroll down to the bottom and you can enable the CDR monitor. You're going to notice that looks almost exactly like it does in the Call Manager configurations. It's just basically a toggle, and then you set some dates and times that you want to be alerted. All right, your minimum volume per hour, the days of the week that you want it to be able to monitor, when that monitor is going to run, and then, of course, who it's going to go ahead and email to. So this is new to EFT, so I definitely, like I said, urge you, if you're taking advantage of our Cube Analytics, take advantage of EFT2, and you will be able to get that CDR monitoring. Great option while I'm in this screen. Next thing I'm going to talk a little bit about is the ability to enable database archiving. So if you're not familiar with database archiving, the high level is it's going to allow us to be able to go ahead and archive databases off for you, keeping a primary database to what I like to refer to as your common data, things that people are generally running reports with regularity on, your daily reports, your weekly reports, your monthly or bi-monthly reports. That's what I like to refer to as primary data. What database archiving is going to do is it'll allow you to keep that primary database relatively smaller because that's what your day-to-day operations are utilizing, but then allow Verify to automatically archive databases off that are maybe queried less often. Think about it. If you got to store 7 years worth of data, how often are you storing that 7th year? Do you need that 7th year worth of data to be queried when your general users are running reports for their daily or weekly, monthly reports? So with database archiving, you can enable this guy. It's going to allow Verify to automatically create what we'll call archive databases, keeping a purge schedule relatively small on your primary database and really, really enhancing that end user experience. Because again, like I said, year 7 is probably not being queried as much as yesterday. So with database archiving, it's simply just a matter of enabling database archiving, setting up your schedule on when you want your archives to occur. I'm not going to go too deep into the weeds on database archiving. If you are looking for some additional information, the last couple webinars that we had really kind of dig into the weeds of setting this guy up and how to set it up as well as the purpose. This is out here in EFT2. Please feel free to take advantage of that. If you guys are looking to take advantage or beta trial the database archiving or the automatic database archiving feature that we're looking at here, please reach out to your account manager. You can absolutely install the EFT version, but we do want to go ahead and enable database archiving in your key. So please reach out to your account manager. We're more than happy to get you an updated key that's got this feature turned on. Last but not least, as far as database archiving goes, is the ability to support multiple databases. So what does that mean? So let's take database archiving out of the picture. I've got a system that's been running for 6 years, and I've got a database out there with 6 years worth of data. Not quite using database archiving yet. Maybe it's just a step I don't want to jump to. Maybe it's something from a red tape perspective. You have to talk to the DBA team, make sure you have the right permissions. So what you can do is create new databases and then attach multiple databases to the Verify system. So I'm working out of the Cube system right now. This is also available for CDR, so you'll have the same options there. But what you'll notice under CDR databases when I pop over here is you're going to have an ability to manage databases or attach additional databases. So what I can do is I can actually rename my current database and kind of start fresh, start with a brand new database. But I'm not going to lose my old stuff. I can go ahead and take that older database and then reassociate it back to my cluster. That's going to give you seamless reporting. Verify is automatically going to know the data or dates within your system there and allow you to query without having to take any additional steps. These are all additional databases, and I see Matt's been busy. These are all additional databases that are out there that I can go ahead and attach to this Cube cluster and then give my end users seamless reporting to my old data while, again, starting to query fresh from my existing or primary database. So multi-database support is available to everybody. If it's something that you guys need a hand getting set up, again, we've got some webinars out there that we've done that'll walk you kind of through it. We've also got a great knowledge-based article that'll kind of get you through it. But of course, we're always happy to jump on the line and make sure that you guys are getting set up right and you understand the feature. And looks like in the interest of time, let's go ahead and talk about some of the other options that we have here. I talked a little bit about report queuing. So report queuing is the ability to go ahead and queue reports. So if you've got 40 reports kicking off at midnight, not all 40 of them are going to run at the same time that maybe your backups are running. So I'm going to pop over here to the gear, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the application settings. So the report queuing, the report on failures, as well as the max widgets are all application-based settings. So these are only available to administrators or application users. So if I pop over to my application settings here, you're going to see this guy will load up, and we're going to take a look at where you configure some of those options. And we're also going to go ahead and adjust maybe the max widgets over here and bring that down from 25 just to kind of show you the end result there. So first thing I'm going to do, let's go ahead and take a look at report queuing. Where's report queuing going to be? Well, it's going to be in the call analytics and reporting section. So you'll notice this guy right here that says max concurrent reports. This is going to go ahead and default to the value of 3, which means it's going to kick off. If I've got 40 reports running at midnight, it's going to kick off 3 at a time. It's going to run 1, the next one, and then it's going to keep going from there, but only keeping it consistent so there's only 3 running at one time. This value is configurable. It's configurable based on really your system size. Not everybody can handle 40 reports running at one time, but there's other customers out there that have the resources available to the Verify system to be able to run that. So this is not just a set it and forget it statistic. There may be some tweaking that needs to be done, but we did find that 3 concurrent calls pretty much fit most of our environments and still allowed everybody to get the reports in a timely manner. But if you do need to make some adjustments to the concurrent calls, right up over at the gear on the top right, pop over to your application settings, and you can make some adjustments to your maximum concurrent reports running at the same time. Next thing we're going to go ahead and take a look at here is going to be the email alerts. So again, we're talking about reports failing. Where's that going to be? In Call Analytics reporting section. So let's say, hey, I have a report. It's getting rather large. It exceeds 10 meg. Maybe 10 meg is my SMTP server limitation. If you don't enable this guy, you're never going to know that a report failed. So if you are using Verify 13.0, I definitely urge you, pop over to the gear, go to your application settings, and enable this guy. So what this guy's going to do is it allows somebody to receive an email. You can either pick a person that you want to receive this email, or you can punt to the default settings. And if I scroll up, you'll see, where did that guy go? I forgot where he went. There's a default option.
It's the very top one.
I thought it was at the very top. Oh yeah, there we go, default guy. So we're going to send all those to Brian because we love Brian, but I won't save that. So what you can do here is then make sure you set that guy up so somebody is getting those alerts. You know, you want to kind of be ahead of a potential problem, or if, like I said, somebody's sending a 20 or a 10 or 20 meg report that's just exceeding your SMTP server limitations. It's a great way to know before somebody has to reach out to you. Last but not least, in our application settings here, if I go ahead and scroll down to the widget configurations here, and you'll notice where are the dashboard settings, right under the dashboard and widget settings. So you'll see right here I have maximum widgets allowed per dashboard. Right now we got this guy jacked up to 25. It will fit a value of anywhere from 3 to 25, so the 25 is going to be the max. But like I said, if you have more than 25 currently running on your dashboard, you load up Verify 13.0. It's not going to remove a bunch of widgets. It's just not going to let you add any more. So let's take a look at this guy in effect here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to crank this down to 3, and we're going to give this guy a quick save. Let me make sure I remove poor Edgar out of here, and I removed Brian out of there. I did. So now we're just going to give this guy a save. And we're going to pop back over. It's yelling at me about something here. Oh, now it's going to make me pick somebody. And let's go ahead and Matt. There we go. So now we're going to go ahead and give that guy a save. So what I've done is I've gone from 25 widgets to 3 widgets. So if I pop over to my dashboard over here, and just about any of these dashboards that are going to load up are going to have probably more than 3 widgets on them. Once this guy loads up, you're going to notice that my new widget button off on the top right is now going to be grayed out. If I hover over it, it's going to tell me, hey, I cannot have more than 3 widgets. So we're not just going to leave people hanging. We are going to let them know that, hey, we've kind of hit a threshold on the number of widgets. And same thing like I showed you before, if I try to copy this dashboard anywhere else, it's going to give me that same error message saying, hey, I've hit the maximum number of widgets. Last but not least, one more thing that I want to go ahead and talk about is the Active Directory. One of the things, like I said, prior to 13.0, we would only support unprivileged field authentication, SAM account name, things like that. But you'll notice in Verify 13.0, we now have the ability to add a distinguished name in service user. That's going to give Verify the ability to log into Active Directory with a service account and read fields that are privileged like mail or user principal name and things like that. So great feature if you guys want to be able to use different fields to authenticate Verify 2. And if you're not taking advantage of Active Directory or single sign-on authentication with Verify, you should be. In this security conscious world that we live in, we need to be as diligent as possible. You guys more than likely have it out there, so I definitely urge you to get a Verify set up using Active Directory or single sign-on. So in a nutshell, those are a lot of the new features that are available in 13.0. A couple of honorable mentions, and again, huge shout out to everybody that took part of our EFT 1 release. We did notice a couple of things that are resolved in EFT 2, and that is going to be, we found some intermittent timeout errors when utilizing database archiving. So we did put some logic in there to go ahead and resolve that. We also found that there was this very specific reporting criteria that had to be set up, and it would cause a report to fail. And that was specifically when we were not showing the description of the queries being run. So if there were some unique configurations within your system, you would have noticed an error when you tried to run a report. We have resolved that as well. And then we also noticed an issue during EFT testing where the DN management may show a DN as available if it was marked active or inactive, and it had to do with multiple of the same DN with different statuses. But we did go ahead and make some adjustments. Again, huge kudos to everybody that took part in EFT1. And for anybody that's interested in the EFT release, EFT2 is now available for general use. So if you guys want, you're more than welcome to pop over to verify.com, download the EFT2 version. We'll go ahead and contact you and try to get some feedback, what it is that you guys are testing, if you've noticed any problems or any issues or any changes that you guys would love to request. So, you know, if you want, please encourage everybody to go ahead and download that guy. And Matt, with that said, I know we are about the top of the hour. Any questions?
We do have a couple, Victor. Yeah, and I think you covered a lot of it though. Matt asks here, we currently use AD, LDAP, SSO, and Verify. Are there plans to support SAML-based SSO and Verify? Well, actually, we do already support SAML 2.0 for a couple different IDPs, for Okta, for Google, for Azure, and I believe even ADFS. Victor, back me up on that one.
You got it, absolutely, yeah. So if you guys are using SAML and SSO, it's definitely something that we support. And even besides the one that Matt had just mentioned, we're always seeing different IDPs pop in, and we've been pretty successful in being able to support all those. Maybe some configuration changes or some work back and forth, but we should be able to get those working for you.
Gotcha. There was another question. Of course, it's eluding me at the moment. The panel's going away as soon as I share. Here we go. Question from Jeremy: is there a way to see phones that are logged into Hunt groups, or is that still only a call center thing? I can answer that one for you, Jeremy. At the moment, with regards to, I guess, Hunt group registration, we actually had that on the roadmap, and that's actually going to be converted into a widget, somewhat of an almost real-time widget to see the Hunt group login registrations. At the moment, we do not have that present in the application, but it is on the roadmap, and it will be here sooner rather than later. All right, let's see. Any other questions? Okay. We covered that for Stephanie. Yes, we do support Okta SSO within Verify. Yes, ma'am. How close to gold standard is EFT 13, Victor? From Sean.
Oh, I'd say it's pretty close. We are expecting to go GA within the next few weeks, so we expect mid-September for our GA, and so far we're pretty well on target for that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, about mid-September-ish, barring anything crazy happening. All right, so I believe that should wrap up all the questions. I do know we are a few minutes over. Victor, awesome job as always. We plowed through the Q&A. Okay, if there's no more questions, I would like to mention our user community. Planet Verify is our new online community where you can connect with your peers and expand your knowledge on all things Verify. Plus, you may end up with some new drink recipes from the Cantina room. It is also where you can sign up to be part of the Verify EFT2 release, or you can wait a few more weeks until the GA. Okay, now the moment we've all been waiting for. And the winner for this week's workshop gift card is, drumroll please, Curtis Beyer. Woo! Congratulations, Curtis. Your account manager will be reaching out to you shortly to get you paid. Now, everyone, do not forget to join next week where Dre and Mike will show us how to identify and report on call parking on your CUCM data. Always a great learning experience with those two. All right, I would like to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules and joining us today. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. Thank you much.
Thanks all.